Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Musa Gaming here, and today I want to talk about Guan Yu in 2025. Now, you might be wondering, why do you want to talk about Guan Yu in 2025? He's such an outdated commander, he might not be relevant anymore. He's probably not relevant anymore, is what you're thinking. But he still is. He's relevant. I think he's arguably still includable in the top 4 infantry marches. Top 4 infantry commanders, so top 2 marches that you can bring out for infantry for various reasons. As you can see that he's on my second infantry set, which is trash. I get it. For those of you who are looking at like how you have such a trash infantry set, I get it. I have a trash infantry set because this is my 5th set. If you want to look at my cap set, here you go. My cap sets are not as bad. But my infantry set is trash. This is my second infantry set. My first infantry set is also trash. If you want to look at my Liu chess set, pretty trash. So, but I still bring it out on the field on Season of Conquest. And the reason is simple. It's because he's still usable in that state. Even if you don't invest too much into him, he's going to bring value. And we're going to actually first take a look at the history of Guan Yu and his release, why it was so important and why he was so strong at the time of his release, and then take a look at his skill set to kind of evaluate why he's still usable, what makes him so strong back then, even now, and why I think he's still usable in 2025, early part of 2025, that is. Why I think that he might not be relevant anymore going into it, going into 2025, later part of this year. And yeah, that's basically how I'll go ahead and conclude this video. I'll probably take a look at his talent tree that I'm using for him. But then again, let's just get right to it. So to look at the history of Guan Yu, you got to use the benefit of me being a Korean American. Now, this is a Korean wiki page for Rise of Kingdoms. And for those of you who can read Korean, this just basically lists out all the Wheel of the Fortune commanders that was released in the order in which they were released in. Now, you don't have to read Korean. I got you. So this site right here has an English version. If you just put en dot whatever the link that I'm actually on, then they're gonna actually transfer it to English. And I don't know if it's actually AI translated, Google translated, whatever it is, we have this page in English now. So I'll go ahead and try to include this link on the description down below if you're looking to actually get the order in which those commanders were released in, because I think they are in order. Yeah, it looks pretty much in order because I think when I first joined this game, the Admiral E was kind of released, and then as I entered, no, actually it was a Scipio Prime era, and then as I kind of entered Season of Conquest, I think Zhuge Liang was released. So yeah, this is pretty much in order. So let's first look at this list. So if this is indeed in order, let's just look at how significant the time in which Guan Yu was released. So Guan Yu was released after Richard I, which is the very first Wheel of Fortune commander, Yi Seong-gye, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Edward Wusta, Takeda Shingen. He was released as the 7th Wheel of Fortune commander in this game. 7th. Now, let's just take a look at this list right here. So, with the exception of Alex, just because of his synergy with Liu Che lately, Guan Yu is the only commander that actually survived all the way until 16th, I think. And I think it is arguable that Guan Yu's better utilized than some of the commanders that are even down here. Like, for example, I think, whereas, William, I think Guan Yu is definitely a level beyond William, in my opinion. Xiangwu, I think Guan Yu can basically cook up Xiangwu. And Gilgamesh, all those commanders, with the exception of a couple of them, like Alexander Nevsky, Joan of Arc, Zhuge Liang, like, oh my god. Guan Yu basically outclasses most of the commanders that are released all the way up to like 20. So just how strong he is as a commander, in my opinion, when he was released is just unimaginable. Now, if you look at it, like just simply look at the damage factors. Like Genghis Khan was 1700, Alexander the Great was like 1200, 600. Now Edward Woodstock was 2500, but then again has a rage of 1350, and also he reduces his own rage after that, so it's basically 1650 for rage. Takeda doesn't even have a damage factor, so Guan Yu has 2000 damage factor and 1050% chance, or 2 targets for 1400. So crazy amount of damage that he can do when he was first released. I bet that's why I think a lot of the old players actually have started on the game with infantry and like stayed with infantry because of how strong Guan Yu was at his time, and then for a very long time thereafter. So Guan Yu's significance in terms of the commander, his era, was very, very big, was what I wanted to actually emphasize here. Now let's just go back to the game and take a look at what his skill set does and why he was so powerful. Now his first skill is basically the bread and butter of what Guan Yu is. I think if you're using Guan Yu, you're using him for this first skill. Now it does have a single drawback, which is he has to be the primary commander, but let's just go ahead and read it. Rage requirement 1000, it deals 3 targets in a fan. So nothing too crazy. Damage factor of 2000, which is nice. But that's reduced to 1000 if you're using it as a secondary commander. Now every additional target reduces by 15%. Very standard. If you're applying to 3 different targets, I think you can do up to 210% of it, which means that 4200 damage factor. And then this right here, this line, that you might not have read it if you actually didn't pay attention to Guan Yu's skill set. So this troops hit by the skills are silenced for the next 3 seconds. Silence means that troops cannot use active skills. So this right here is why Guan Yu was so strong. And I think when Lilith released Guan Yu, they didn't really think too much about the idea of silence so much, but when they released him, they were like, oh crap. Silence is too OP, overpowered, that we cannot release another silence commander in the game. And hence, ever since Guan Yu has been released, we haven't seen a single commander that does AoE silence ever. I don't think even there is like a single target silence commander ever. So this is very powerful. This basically shuts down that commander for 3 seconds. If you're using, let's say, some people are trying to cheeseburger, but then again you get Guan Yu silence, oh my god. You're going to eat the skill damage if you're trying to milk out that 3-second silence, because that shuts you down so much. This is a very, very powerful debuff. Most powerful debuff in the game, in my opinion. Now, with that said, his damage factor isn't even bad either. 2000 damage factor is great. Let's take a look at Scipio, who's actually released way later than Guan Yu, and he does 2000 damage factor too. So a couple years of difference, same damage factor to same number of targets. Pretty crazy for what Guan Yu has when he was first released, in my opinion. And on top of that, the most powerful debuff in the game applied with his first skill on AoE. So it's not even 1 target, it's 3 targets that he's hitting. So very powerful skill, first skill, bread and butter again. Now when you're talking about his first skill, you can't undermine his 4th skill. So Green Dragon Crescent Blade, this is the weapon that he's using, which is this one right here, the spear right here. If the Saint of War skill hits exactly 1 target, it has 50% chance to deal extra 1000 damage factor to target. So this one, actually, if it's hitting a single target, goes up to 3000 damage factor. Okay, good. And then if this, and again, just how crazy that is 2500 damage factor expected. So average of 2500 damage factor of a unit that was released right after Takeda and Alexander, which is like doing like 16, it's not even 2,000. And this guy, in average, is going to do 2,500 damage factor with his first skill alone. But let's just go in and read the rest of his kits. So if this skill hits 2 or more targets, it has 50% chance to deal extra direct damage of 1,400 to the current target of this commander's troop. So if it's hitting more than one target, which is going to be most of the time, you have 50% chance to deal 1,400 damage factor. What does that mean? So within one single AoE, if you hit 3 targets, you will do 4,200 damage factor. On top of that, you will do 1,400 extra to that 4,200 damage factor. That is 5,600 damage factor without any skill damage buff, without anything. That's what this skill, 51115 Guan Yu can do, and you can silence them. And in average, let's say you're thinking about hitting 3 different targets. In average, this is going to be basically 700 extra damage factor with 50% chance, if you factor in 50% chance. So in average, he's going to do 4,900 damage factor in his AoE to 3 targets. So very, very strong skill, in my opinion. And that's it. That's why he's so strong, because of how powerful the silence is, and being the only silencer and the only AoE silencer who can silence multiple targets on the field, he's still used as one of the top 4 or top 6 infantry commander in the game, just because of how powerful his silence is, and just because how powerful his active skill is in combination of his first skill and fourth skill. Now his second skill is actually one of the most, I would say, trashy, unnecessary skills in his set. It says if this commander's troop is attacking a city or stronghold, their troop deals normal damage and has 10% chance to reduce their attack. Cool story, no one cares about city attacking, let's move on. Now, slaying of a Huaxiang. So this is about the story of him actually killing one of the stronger general that he was actually up against. So this commander's infantry gains 30% attack, which is good. 15% march speed, which is very good for infantry, especially the time that he was released. And if this troop exits combat, it recovers a portion of slightly wounded units, 1,000 factor. Nothing to throw away here. Amazing. Just movement speed great, attack great, healing factor great. Just nothing to throw away here. And let's just go ahead and take a look at his expertise skill. It's not really too crazy. After receiving a shield, this commander's troop deals 15% more skill damage for 3 seconds with a cooldown of 5 seconds. And then after leaving a resource point or building, gains 100% march speed for 3 seconds. You might think that the first part of his skill is actually more important than the second skill, but the first part of his skill is actually really hard for you to activate. Just because, let's say, the most commonly used pair, just because of the fact that he actually has to be used as a primary commander. Now, if he can be used as a secondary commander, then this is very easy for you to activate. You just have to put him behind Charles Martel or Alexander the Great or anything that can shield you. And this will just work fine, but you're the primary commander. You're going to have to use your first active skill before someone else actually shields you. So this is very hard for you to actually activate. The only other commander that can trigger this is actually Scipio Prime. His fourth skill actually has a chance, whenever it takes the skill damage, it has 50% chance to generate a shield, and that could potentially help him get this off. But in most cases, there is very little chance that you can actually have this on. So his first part of the skill is actually not very useful. Second part of the skill is actually also, it's good that you can actually march out faster, but it's not really necessary. So yeah, his first and fourth skill very, very strong. His third skill also very powerful, but then again, his second skill and expertise skill makes him, is not really useful. I think if I have to estimate the percent of his value that is missed out by not having his second skill and the expertise skill, I think it's less than 5%. So you can get about 95 to 97% of Guan Yu if you have him 5-1-5-5, in my opinion. So hence, I actually recommend that if you're thinking about investing in Guan Yu in 2025, you either use him as 5115 if you can get that lucky. If you can't get that lucky, you can use him as 5155 as much as possible, and then have you use his. Oh, let me rephrase that. So if you the minimum that you should actually use him with is 5155. I recommend using him as 5155. What am I saying? So 5115. 5115 is the minimum that I think I should recommend that you use him as. And what I do recommend is 5155 is the most that I would recommend him at in terms of his skill level. As you can see, I use him as 5255 because I wasn't as lucky as some of the other people, and then I actually just got one skill landed on here, which is still fine, in my opinion. So again, the fact that he can silence, he's the only one who can actually silence the troop on the map, makes him so powerful in the game. And that like just having him, even though my equipment for him is really not that great, I think just having him benefits your murder ball so much because you're actually adding a new mechanic that will actually silence 3 different targets that you're actually attacking. And then that target will not be able to attack you for 3 seconds, that you can actually attack them with, like, barrage them in the active skills. And now that after getting barrage with 5 different marches active skill, your opponent's active skill that basically gets taken off after getting silenced is not going to be that strong. It makes you take a lot less damage because of that. And hence, just because of the fact that his silence is where you're getting the most value out of him, I would say if I have to estimate, it's like probably 85% to 90% of his value comes from the fact that he can silence from his first active skill. So with that said, you can, I think it's still recommended that you have him included somewhere in your march so that he can actually do AoE silence for you. Now, what I do recommend for his equipment is actually not this, but let's just go ahead and take a move on to my Liu chess set. So what I do recommend for him is actually not this. Definitely not this. So I would say you get the drum, because I don't think you really do a lot more damage. You really want to give him not your best set, but second best set, but then you can help out your other marches. So drum is fine. I think all the other equipments are fine. If you want to maximize your value, you can still use the leadership legs and boots for the extra health. And then for this slot, I suggest that you use your horn, because at the end of the day, his value comes from his active skill only. So I think you should use horn. If you have the KVK coins to spare for your Guan Yu, I would say that you should get the KVK helmet and KVK weapon swapped out from whatever I have. But everything else I think is pretty good for you to use for what I have on my Liu Che. Now with that said, I still do recommend that you use wedge formation for him. He does still do enough AoE damage for him to be relevant in this, in the current era. So I use wedge formation. As you can see, this is my 5th best set, so it's not really that great. It has like only few inscriptions, but those are my leftover sets. But pretty decent for you to just use for silence for wedge formation. Now with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at his talent. So again, maximizing the rage so that he can take off with his first skill. So being able to actually maximize max the ultimate, the feral nature, will be ideal. I think this one also gives you a lot more rage if you use an active skill, rejuvenate. Getting anything that's related to rage generation, so this one right here and this one right here, will be great. And then give you some tankiness from here. If it has infantry only, it has a chance to take 20% less damage, which is awesome. 6% health, and then everything else I think you can just basically use what I shown you right here. So pretty standard thing for you to actually use. And what is the best pairing for Guan Yu? Let's go ahead and do the march. So I think this is the best pairing for Guan Yu. Just because of the fact that they both are very skill damage focused commanders. And as you can see, as I actually said before, Scipio, if you actually have an expertise Guan Yu, has a chance for you to activate a shield that will basically allow you to activate Guan Yu's expertise skill every now and then, but it's just with a chance. So, and this is with a chance that you get actually hit by a skill damage. So, it is a little rough. But then again, I think Scipio is probably the best recommended commander for me to use. And Scipio actually does really well with Guan Yu because his one of his expertise skill, one night of his expertise skill says their troop gains rage 30% faster if the current target is silenced. So the only way that you can silence any troop on the open field right now is with Guan Yu, and this will actually help you generate rage faster, trigger Guan Yu's active skill again a lot quicker. Just makes sense for everyone. And his first skill also is 3 target fan, which is basically going to coincide with whatever Guan Yu has. Don't have to worry too much about positioning differently. It's just going to do the same thing. And also his rest of his skills is also very, very strong. March speed, attack, which is basically pretty good. Infantry health and additional skill damage that you can do just synergizes really well with Guan Yu, and his 10% extra skill damage that he does with expertise is also very great. Now, that's what I think the best pairing for Guan Yu is. So Guan Yu Scipio Prime is the best pairing in my opinion. If I have to guess for the second best pairing for infantry, I think it's probably Alex. Alex, because for one, he does have the shield, which I don't think can trigger too much, but it's still nice to have. I think his bar speed is actually really great, so you can actually allow your Guan Yu to hit and run faster, which is very nice. And I think attack and defense buff is whatever. But then again, this also allows your Guan Yu to do extra skill damage, and also apply also makes you do the full damage because he can actually shrug off all the damage reducing buffs. Now you can technically use him with, I think, other commanders, like, where is Ragnar Prime? Ragnar Prime set is basically for you to actually do enough skill damage, so I think he has the skill damage bonus, and he does take less skill damage, makes him very tanky, and then allow you to do enough skill damage that Guan Yu actually has. So if you're looking for a pair to your Ragnar Prime, I think Guan Yu is a great option. But I think at the end of the day, his synergy with what's this called? The Scipio Prime's expertise, which is the rage generation. Again, most of the time, Guan Yu is going to provide the most value by using the active skill most often because of his silence. And his silence is where I think, again, 80 to 90% of his value comes from. So if you can get silence rage generation as much as you can with Scipio, I think it just makes them the best pairing in my opinion. Now, the last option is probably Philip. Where is Philip? Where is my Philip? Just go ahead and... yeah, Philip. Because for one, I think you do get that Philip expertise skill. You have a chance to use your active skill again. So this will allow you to silence the target longer, because even if you're using the active skill again, it does have that slight delay, so it will keep the silence longer. But, and also does like more damage for your own troops, and then it has more speed and stuff. Damage bonus. Basically makes him hit a lot harder, trigger more silences. But then again, that's just technicality of it. In reality, Philip is such a strong leadership commander that you can just use him anywhere else, and it's probably better for you to use Philip with, let's say, something like Liu Che or Arthur, if you have the Delta set available, that is. So being able to use Philip with Guan Yu is less likely. I would say just use him with Scipio Prime, in my opinion, if everything is considered. So that's it for basically everything that I can take a look at, and I can talk about Guan Yu in terms of skill set, best pairing, best talent tree. Actually, there's one more thing that I do want to talk about, which is actually the future for Guan Yu. Now, future for Guan Yu is tough in my opinion. I think we have reached the time where we are going to actually have the power creep catch up to what Guan Yu and then push him out of the way. Uh, does that mean that I think the next commander release, which is going to be infantry, will push Guan Yu out? I don't 100% know, but I personally think that the next commander release would actually pair Liu Che with someone else. Liu Che does a smite damage, which is a completely different damage factor than what Guan Yu has, which is a skill damage. And right now, we do have a couple other options for Liu Che, which was, again, Philip, Alex, and William Wallace, which actually has a smite damage as well. But I think next release will probably make infantry's Liu Che March a lot stronger. Now, if they release someone who's going to do skill damage a lot stronger, then Guan Yu will be pushed out, I think. And then the top two infantry march will be Liu Che plus Alpha, Liu Che with Alex or Liu Che with Philip, with Ragnar Prime with whoever the next skill damage infantry commander will be. Or if that commander is not as strong, if that commander is not strong enough to actually push out Guan Yu and Guan Yu's silence mechanism off of him, I think there still is a chance that Guan Yu can actually survive even if they release a skill damage commander. They'll just not, infantry mains will just not use Ragnar Prime and just use Guan Yu and whoever that comes out next. There's that chance, but if you're actually, unless you're actually running 3 infantry marches, which is very unlikely, I think Guan Yu might actually be pushed out. But if you're actually thinking about investing in today, I would just wait until the next infantry commander release goes for the field, and then if you think that he's a smite commander, I think you can just invest in Guan Yu with 5-1, 5-5 as much as possible, and still use him on the field. His silence is still, again, it's the only unique debuff that it's a unique debuff that only Guan Yu has on the field. So if the next release of infantry commander is going to be a smite commander that's going to go well with Liu Che, my recommendation for you is actually use Guan Yu. Build up a Guan Yu, 5-1, 5-5. It's only going to cost you 300 gold sculptures, and then use him for the next 6 to 7 months that you're going to be able to use him until the next whatever skill damage infantry commander comes up. And then you can just be happy about whatever results that you got for the past 6 months, 7 months, in my opinion. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I'm making this video in part because I think there is a chance that Guan Yu might be able to might be pushed out of the meta after the next infantry release, and I just wanted to kind of make a video to kind of commemorate Guan Yu. Take a look at his skill set, why he still might potentially survive the next release for infantry, and and why you should probably consider using him if you actually want to build 3 different infantry marches. And he is very strong, so if you're thinking about investing in him, if you don't have him built out already, I would just recommend that you wait until the next infantry commander release is going to be. If it's a smite commander that will go well with Liu Che, don't bench Guan Yu yet, is my suggestion, but it is just only my suggestion, my opinion. But hopefully this video was enjoyable for you. If you did enjoy this video, please drop a like and subscribe for the channel. I've been seeing some slowdown in the subscription lately, so if you want to make more videos like this in the future, please do so. And otherwise, I'll see you on the next video.